All right. Hello, horror fans. This is Pete from the Lasser Cast, and I'm here with my sexy Michael Myers shirt wearing co-host with the most, Dr. Zayas God. Danny, it is time to talk about Hell House LLC, which came out in 2015. Did you see this movie in the theater in 2015?
No, I don't even think it went to theaters back in 2015. This was, I think, my first exposure to Hell House was through Shudder.
Yeah.
I think each of the now three sequels has been a Shudder exclusive. So I think when the first sequel came out, the Abaddon House in 2018, I think they made it was like Shudder exclusive, Hell House LLC Part 2. And I was like, oh, there's a Hell House LLC Part 1. Also, and I don't know if I've like made this public. I don't think this is like a big thing to hide anymore. But I really like found footage horror. I'm a huge found footage horror fan. I will defend the Blair Witch Project to the death against its army of people who just saw it in 2023 and don't get it. I will like the list goes on for me. Like that's why I really enjoy the VHS franchise. You know, there's different aspects of like found footage. Is it found footage? Is it docu style?
Right.
Yeah, I just like that style of horror where I feel like I am literally a character in the movie with these people and it's happening to them. And I've listened to writer-director Stephen Cognetti talk about his process and how important it is for him to have a reason for the camera to be there. That's always the big criticism with found footage. It's like, why are they still filming this? And in this case, it makes perfect sense. Like this franchise is based around, okay, we are recording a documentary for our haunted attraction. We are, recording a documentary to find out what happened at the haunted attraction. We want to dig into the past, and even the latest one, Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, which you can check out on our channel. I went to the Shudder showcase, did about a 45-second spoiler-free review, and I even recorded director Stephen Cognetti's full interview with Sam Zimmerman of Shudder and Q&A with the crowd, and that is up on our channel as well.
Nice.
He made a point of like, we need a reason. So in the latest movie, it's a horror true crime podcasters go to visit the Carmichael Manor to do an episode based on like the events that happened there, and then they're recording and all the weird shit starts happening. So I think that this franchise does a fantastic job of establishing why the camera is there. And yeah, as usual, I'm off on an early tangent, but yes, I think I was recommended to this movie as like, oh, if you like found footage, you should check this out. And then Part 2 came out as a Shudder exclusive, and it made me want to revisit it. I think I've seen the original now 3 or 4 separate times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was actually Charlotte and my first October watch together on October 1st. Back on October 1st when everybody's like, we're going to watch 31 horror movies this month. And then like work and real life gets in the way. And by like October 5th, you're like, oh man, I haven't watched a movie in 3 days.
Right.
But yeah, this was our first horror movie of the month back in October, Hell House LLC, the original from 2015.
Nice, man. Yeah. My first time watching it was last week. I was going to try to do that event on Shudder where like you would watch the first one, then you'd watch the prequel, and you would like live stream with the creators of the movie. I love that. I love when Shudder does that. It really makes you feel like you're a part of the horror community. That's actually what got me into Shudder. I think it's actually kind of led to the creation of this channel, was like participating in those events on Shudder. It was actually your friend was the first one I ever went to. Ted Gagan It was that movie. Though those are who we're still left behind.
We
What's
Are
that movie?
Still Here.
We Are Still Here. There we go. Yeah, it was their movie. They did a live stream of it, and Barbara Crampton was like tweeting too
If
along
Ted
with it.
Kagan's listening, I wouldn't call us. I don't want it out there that him and I are like buddies that hang out. He hosts the horror trivia. He's super cool. Like I've gotten to meet him a bunch of times. I will actually be seeing him next Wednesday at Final Exam Horror Trivia at Rock Bar, New York. So if anybody out here is listening to this and wants to hang out with awesome people in an awesome place playing probably the best horror trivia in New York City, Final Exam Horror Trivia, you can find them on Twitter. I'm sorry, X. You can find them on all their social medias at Final Exam Horror Trivia, and they'll be at Rock Bar, New York, right off the West Side Highway.
Nice. Yeah.
That's on the 15th, November 15th.
Oh, okay. Well, so that's cool. I guess like he's not your friend, but maybe if he has to,
I'm friendly with him. I'm very like we don't hang out, but he's super cool, and he's made some great movies. Brooklyn 45 is probably going to end up in my top 10 horror list of this year. But Michael Gingold is the co-host, and he is, if you've ever watched the Shudder documentary, speaking of Shudder, you know who Michael Gingold is. He's a Fangoria contributor. He does so much for Fangoria, and he's a very proud member of the horror community.
Nice. I actually just subscribed to Fangoria this week too, so I'm excited about that. But bringing it back to Hell House, the original one that came out in 2015, it takes place in Rockland County, New York, and it was kind of giving me vibes for the Northeast when I was watching it. That whole town where they're filming this movie, I kind of felt similar to the guys that are the main characters too, because they're of that age. They're younger than us, but they're basically aspiring haunt creators, and I love that passion that they have, where they get excited about every little piece they add to this project. They're excited about the location that they find. They're excited about all these crazy props that they're going to use. Just growing up and being with friends that were like filmmakers or writers, you sense that kind of excitement about the project. I was really digging that. I was really feeling it. I was like, I actually want to legitimately go to their haunt. And one of the things.
The where the Abaddon Hotel is actually a haunt. It's the Waldorf Estate of Fear in Rockland County, and like you can a bunch of our friends, mutual friends, have been there a couple different times.
Oh, cool.
I mean, Brian. I think Brian and Kristen have gone there with the crew. I'm not sure. I will see Brian later at a mutual friend's birthday.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I was actually going to ask you, have you and Shari ever done a haunt, or have you ever taken the girls to like a haunted attraction in Texas?
Absolutely. I'm really glad you asked that. There's one that we have here in Austin, which is called Scare for a Cure. And it is held in a ghost town, like an old fashioned Texas Wild West ghost town. Which you could just visit throughout the year, this ghost town, and go hang out there. They have weddings there. Scare for a Cure is this haunt that's like very involved. You can tell they put a lot of money, a lot of time into making this. And it has like an adventure where, you're on it for like 50 minutes going from room to room with all these different actors jumping out at you. But it's not just like cheap thrills where they jump out. There's like a legit story. There's like a scene in every room that you go to. I love it. I love haunts, and I'm a big fan of them having like themes or ideas behind them versus just like random shit that jumps out at you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've only done one. I went to Bates Motel, which is, I don't even remember if it's like rural Jersey or if it's just over the border into Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But it's not very far. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours from New York City.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. They did a haunted hayride. They have a haunted house, and they do have kind of that traditional jump out and scare you thing, but they also have rooms in the house that are creepy as hell. The hayride was pretty awesome. It's something I would definitely do again. I'm always of the opinion that places like that can exist year round,
Yeah.
and should exist year round. And
Right.
I hate that we kind of pigeonhole Halloween. You know, like there's an actual store. Now, granted, I think the store went out of business, but there was an actual store called the Christmas Tree Shop that was open year round.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if that could be open year round, like Spirit Halloween and haunted attractions should be open year round. Like
Yeah. Totally
it
agree,
just,
man.
but I think one thing this movie has in its favor is, despite the whole idea of this movie is haunted attraction goes terribly wrong, I think this movie actually does a lot for haunted attractions. I think you see how much work goes into setting them up, how much like meticulous care goes into, like you said, every aspect of every room, and like the story and the, like, you know, the tour and everything. And even though this is a fictionalized movie about a haunted attraction that, you know, somehow opens up a, you know, there's an evil in the house that takes over and ends up killing people, it leaves you wanting to, for some reason, do a haunted attraction.
Yes.
And there's like this new, this movie came out in 2015, and it's now a franchise of 4 films. And in that, God, 8-year gap between the original and Carmichael Manor, which just came out right before Halloween on Shudder, I think that there's this like new subgenre of horror, of like haunted attraction horror, where you have like Hellfest. There's actually a movie called Haunt, about like an evil haunted attraction, like roadside attraction. Uh, you know, even like going back to, and I know this movie came out a long time ago, but House of a Thousand Corpses, actually, if you remember, starts as kind of like a haunted attraction horror movie where like the gang finds Captain Spaulding and they're like, oh, let's go to this place. And it, you know, obviously turns out not well for them.
Right.
But I do think that there is something to the horror fan and the person who likes getting scared, the person who likes to go to Fright Fest or Universal Studios. What do they call the Universal Studios?
Oh shit! Halloween Horror Nights. Is
Halloween
that it?
Horror Nights, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people that like to go to Halloween Horror Nights, the people that like to go to Fright Fest at like Six Flags, the idea of like going to a rural location where, you know, there's this already this kind of a creepiness factor, and then having jump scares and, you know, built-in effects and everything, it I think that there is something to that, and I think this movie really tapped into that, and I think that's why the found footage works so well in this, because found footage is one of the rare subgenres of horror where I feel like the jump scares are earned, because it's your eyes become the camera. So it's like if I'm looking this way and there's something out of my peripheral vision, and then I turn and there's somebody here, even like in a traditional horror movie where you are following characters and the camera's stationary, that's going to feel cheap and, oh, the cat jumped down and got me. In a found footage movie, you're in that particular situation. Like, I can't tell you how many times Athena gets mad at me where like I'll be getting dinner ready or like standing in the kitchen, and then I turn around and she's just in the kitchen, and I turn around and go, and she's like, why do you keep doing that? I'm like, because I didn't know you were there. And so I feel like that found footage plus the haunt aspect of it, it just lets this movie work so well. And the original especially, and the whole franchise. We were talking before we started filming, I don't think there's a bad film in this franchise. They're all really effective. They're all short at around 90 minutes. And they are all very effective.
Yeah, and I mean, we should address the actual scares in this, right? So the guys are preparing for this haunt, and they incorporate these clown like mannequins, basically, right? Now, what's so great about found footage is it's all about the foreshadowing. There's always the stuff that they establish early on when everything seems normal, where they're like, oh, yeah, here's the rule about this. Or when you do this, this is going to happen. And so the audience in the back of their mind is anticipating what's going to happen. Now, one thing they established very early on with these mannequins is they're like, this thing's head can't move. That's going to be a problem. We have to set it up in such a way so that it's facing the people when they come in. So, even on a subconscious level, like, okay, that thing's head can't move. So obviously it's going to move at some point and you're going to be like, what the fuck? You know it. You're just waiting for that moment. The thing is with these clowns, right? And the main one in particular, they use in a lot of the marketing. They are just so inherently creepy looking that just looking at them is unsettling, right? Just looking at an image on a poster is like, oh. And so I kept thinking to myself, okay, this is so meta because they're filming a haunt, which is supposed to be that walking through a haunt is a scary thing. But then we're a crew filming the making of the haunt. But then this is actually just a movie. And so we're watching people making something that's supposed to scare you. And I kept thinking in real life, the people making this movie, they probably got fucking creeped out all the time just filming this movie. And especially
there's a scene in the movie where there's a scene in the original where one of the characters like runs out to throw up. And I read on IMDb that was completely real, that wasn't acting.
Yep.
I mean, you just think about like if you've ever held a camera and if you've ever ran through tight spaces, how unsettling that must be.
Yeah.
And how like dizzying that must be. I want to bring up, clowns have been a staple of horror for so long.
Right.
It came out in 1990. Tim Curry's Pennywise has been a thing now for 33 years. We are, now here's the crazy thing. The Hell House LLC Part 1, 2015, is pre Andy Muschietti It.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So the idea of like creepy clowns in horror has been done to death. And for them to come up with a new twist on the scary clown is amazing in and of itself. But for them to then, the way they use the clowns, you said they establish rules.
Right.
And the great thing about these movies is that they really don't break those rules for such a long time. To make a connection to a movie, the last time we hung out on, to do a review, we reviewed one of this year's most disturbing films, When Evil Lurks.
Yes.
You guys can check that video out. Speaking of Shudder, it's streaming on Shudder now.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about with When Evil Lurks is how the scares feel different than your traditional horror movie, because the filmmaker is basically holding up a sign that says, we're going to do this awful thing, but we're not going to tell you when. Right. It's happening. It's going to happen. And there's this slow dread that we feel as an audience member going, oh God, I know what's going to happen, but why isn't it happening already? And I feel like Stephen Cognetti did that with Hell House LLC with these fucking clowns. When we see them, the characters run down into the basement and they see the three clowns and they touch them and they physically push them and they set them up, and then they run up and they run down and then they turn quickly and the fucking heads have turned and you're like, what? And then you cut, turn back, and they're back and you're like, is the cameraman going crazy? We did just see that. We know it happened. What's going on? Then they start moving around the house, not physically. We don't see like a man in a clown suit moving. It's just the characters will walk out and there's a fucking clown puppet or the clown, mannequin.
Yeah.
And like they slowly walk down the steps. And again, they do they touch it. And it's fucking with us, the audience, because we know, obviously, these fucking clown puppets are evil. They're possessed. There's something going on, and then everybody should get the hell out of this house. And it's that slow dread and anticipation of, okay, is the clown gonna like come after them now? Why isn't the clown just coming after them now? And then like 20 minutes go by and you're like, that fucking clown hasn't moved. What is going on?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that he somehow, Stephen Cognetti, has managed to do that for 4 freaking movies now. Because it's the same thing. Like I was sitting in a packed New York City theater at the IFC Center for Hell House Part 4, the Carmichael Manor, which is a little bit of a prequel. And audience member that next to me was a couple, and they were like, I literally heard the woman say to the guy she was with, "Oh God, the fucking clown! Why doesn't fuck that clown?" Like she was like yelling at her boyfriend, "Fuck that clown!"
Yes.
And it's just the camera lingering on the clown.
Yes.
It doesn't move. It doesn't blink. It doesn't go rah. It just stands there, and you're like, "Fuck!"
Yes.
So good.
Something that you expect to hear from your girlfriend if you have a clown kink and you're doing a threesome. Fuck that clown. So, I was gonna say that you're absolutely right. I am actually interested in watching the other ones because I want to see how they kind of just keep this clown thing going now at this point. And it's more than just the clowns. Though. The clowns are like super disturbing, but then there's also this shape that looks almost like Dracula. It's got like a kind of like a oh not that shape, not Michael Myers, but it's this weird fucking shape. And one thing that we should point out is that the film itself is like Blair Witch, where it's framed like a documentary. They're like, we found this footage, we don't know what happened here, this is what happened next, and there's constantly like little captions that say this person did this, and then like a couple of hours later this happened. And
they also have the really cool archival footage, and they have like interviews with local historians who know the background of the Abaddon house and the weird people that lived there before. And that's really what the sequels start to get into. The sequels start to get into like, before this haunt was set up, what was happening in that house? Was there a cult there? Was there a evil wizard? Was there a Satanist? I want to shout out one of the actors, Theodore Boulakis, who plays the older historian Robert Lyons. I could watch an entire friggin' movie of him as this local historian telling stories of haunted houses and haunted attractions. He's the guy with like the big white beard.
Yeah.
And the fact that his name is Theodore Boulakis, he sounds like he's like his real name sounds like he's a character in Rosemary's Baby. Just works perfectly.
Right.
Yeah.
I love his little touch. Well, that's the funny thing, right? Is we see a lot of him in the beginning of the movie, right? And when you watch it for the first time, it seems like the movie has kind of blown its horror load. I'm sorry, I'm kind of perverted in the morning, I guess, on Saturdays. But like, they show the incident right away that inspires this documentary. They show the first night of the haunt, and everyone of the talking heads is talking about this incident. You see footage of people going into the haunt, everyone's excited, and then it gets to this point where there's just this clog of people coming out of the basement. Now, that in itself is extremely scary. That's like, you were talking about like people having this fear of clowns, or like how we use clowns in horror movies. There's also that fear of just being in like a public event and being trampled to death because there's some kind of emergency. And that scene, when they show the haunt going wrong, that's almost as scary as anything else in the movie. Just everyone just pushing their way out. We're both in education. And a couple of years ago, I had to do a training on like, mass shootings and all those kind of things that we might unfortunately experience. And the police that trained us showed us this video of, it was like that concert where the pyrotechnics went wrong, and they showed all the people leaving, and you actually did see eventually people sort of just trampling over each other in the footage. And this movie made me think of that footage in that beginning scene. So as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, well, they're showing all this right now. Is this it? Are they going to just kind of keep referring back? There has to be more. And then you realize it's all the recording of them setting up the haunt and all the weird things that they see leading up to it. But now that we're like 25 minutes in, there is one thing that I wanted to ask you about. There's a point in every found footage horror movie where the people that are recording essentially like hit this wall and they're like, we got to stop doing this, or it's time to leave. They have to be like logical, like the audience. Like the filmmakers anticipate that the audience is like, why are they still doing this? And they have to address it. So in this movie, the people quit, people leave, and they say, we can't do this. But then the main guy has a conversation with his like partner, and you don't see the conversation, but you know that there's some kind of truth that the main guy conveys. He says there's something, and they're like, I didn't know about that. Do they ever address that in sequels?
I'm not sure. I always just looked at it as like I thought they made a good point at the beginning of like talking about like how this was like their last chance and that this was like all they had and they needed to get this done, and if they like abandoned this project that they were just done. And like at least the main guy, the head of the operation, he's like seemingly a little desperate to get this done and
Yes.
willing to ignore some fairly obvious things. Like when there's like evidence on camera that there's like weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's like that music that such a simple like 4 notes on the piano that keep playing, which is so creepy. Yeah, I do think, I mean, yes, when I just saw Stephen Cognetti in person, and I recorded his Q&A, he brings up that fact of like, there comes a point where, you ask, why are we still filming? Why don't we just get out? And throughout the series, I think they do a good job of kind of addressing that when it comes up. But he does say at one point in his Q&A, he goes, at the end of the day, I'm making a movie. So yeah, why don't the characters leave? Because they're stupid and they're in a horror movie, and I love that he said that. And yeah, I feel like, we all get to these parts of our jobs where we hate our jobs and we're like, why don't we just quit? And you're like, because there's realities. I can't quit. And if you're like a low budget filmmaker or a low budget extra or a like set designer of a haunt and you close up this project, what else is there for you?
Right.
And I think like, let's just get this done no matter how weird it is. I think that there is that aspect, of things, but also, yeah, I mean, it's a horror movie and, you need your characters to be dumb. If everybody, it's like, did you ever see that, there's like that panel meme, or whatever it is, where it's like, they do entire movies, but in like 2 frames.
No.
They'll be like, Anakin, you should turn to the dark side. No, thanks. The end.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes, I've seen that.
By George Lucas.
Yes, I have seen that kind of meme. Yes, absolutely.
So it's like every movie would be like that if the characters acted normally.
Right. No, you bring up a really great point. Like in so many horror movies, and they don't even have to be found footage horror movies. A lot of the times it's like, oh, financially, if we don't do this, it's going to ruin us. That is the motivation for a lot of horror movies.
I know this is a way off comparison, but like I literally just saw Killers of the Flower Moon last night. It's true story. It's based on a true story.
Yeah.
And Leonardo DiCaprio's character, his wife in the movie, who is a native Osage Indian, her and her sisters at one point early in the movie are sitting around and they are joking with each other about how all these white men want to marry them because they want their oil money. And I'm like, yeah, isn't it kind of obvious? Like, how do you keep falling for this?
Yeah.
And yet, all her and all of her sisters marry these money hungry white guys in 1920s Oklahoma. And it's all part of this like grand conspiracy to kill them off and steal their money. And it's like, it it's based on a true story. And you're like, if that was a fiction, you'd be like, come on, you can't be this dumb.
Right.
Like
Right.
you have to see through this. But it's reality. Like, people make terrible decisions in real life. So I
Yeah.
don't know, horror movie characters are, just an extension of that.
Just like us. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's funny because like when they had that private conversation, I thought that maybe it somehow tied into Sarah too. But I think we should like bring up Sarah as well. Sarah is essentially like the lone survivor of this massacre of the film crew and like this incident that happened at this haunt. She shows up later after the massacre and she's interviewed by the filmmakers that are making the documentary. And throughout the course of the filming of their like haunt preparation, you start to see her do all these kind of weird things. And I was thinking that maybe their little side conversation was like, oh, there's something wrong with Sarah. Like, we need to do this because if we don't, something will happen to Sarah. I think your financial reason is probably the reason, and it makes the most sense. But they're very effective. Like, there's a couple of scenes. Like, okay, so I'm earlier on, I mentioned how like foreshadowing is crucial with found footage movies because they have to establish things. They established that with the original film, the guy who's filming the guy who's filming the haunt preparation, right? They're kind of filming that he's like a little bit pervy, that he wants to like see like women with their tops off and stuff, and he's making all these crude comments, and he seems to be focused on Sarah. And then he takes a couple of inappropriate shots of her. There's this one really great scene where he's in his bedroom and she's just standing there, and he doesn't even know that she's fucking standing there, but the camera's on. I love that. I think to me, that's using found footage horror to its fullest extent.
And,
where it's like
the follow-up scene to that, where he, I guess, gets killed because that's his last scene in the movie.
Yeah.
When he wakes up and he sees the girl sitting against his wall, and he like covers up.
Oh.
And then he uncovers and she's closer. That's that slow dread where you're like, there's no escape from this situation. Why is it still happening? Why am I still watching this? Why doesn't it just end faster? And it's so, so good.
Yes. I wanted to point out one thing too. That sequence is great because you have the covers and like you are literally him, right? Because you're him with the covers, protecting yourself from the girl, which evokes that sort of feeling of like being a little kid. You're scared in your bedroom. You're pulling the covers over your head, right? I love that scene. What's interesting about the scene where Sarah's in the background and he's in the foreground and he's being filmed is that for the majority of the movie, you are him, right? Because he's filming, you're seeing the things that he's seeing with the camera. But in that instance, he's put the camera down and he's not looking at it. Just the audience is looking at it. So that adds this extra layer of like tension and fear because he's not seeing it. He can't act upon it. We're the only ones that can see it, And I just love that. I think I've mentioned this before on the show before, but like Hitchcock says that to like really have a tense scene, you establish that the audience knows something that the characters don't, right? And that's the perfect example of it, right? Where this guy doesn't know there's a fucking crazed woman right behind him.
Well, that's what Hitchcock said with suspense is the idea that something is going to happen, but you don't do it. And again, that's the idea that we saw with When Evil Lurks, and it's the idea that we see in these movies. I know we're talking about the first one, but I can't express how really underrated and great this franchise is, especially now that they've just released a fourth film, kind of a prequel, kind of a separate story. The first three take place in the Abaddon, and then this fourth one, it takes place somewhere else in that same upstate New York area. And it's just he manages to, continue to be able to ring out these scares. And as somebody who went to college in upstate New York, there are few places on earth creepier than upstate New York. Like when I found out that Rod Serling went to junior high school in the town that I went to college in, I said, "Yep, that makes perfect sense. This is the fucking Twilight Zone." It makes that he's the guy that wrote the Twilight Zone.
Yes, Binghamton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived around the corner my junior year from a school, and there was a sign outside that very proudly boasted that Rod Serling went there. And I went, "Yep, there you go. Makes perfect fucking sense."
Makes sense. Yes. Well, this movie, it's so unsettling and so creepy. And you're right, like the location of where it's filmed actually adds to that. But I think what really helps the most is that scary stuff happens, but it's never like totally in your face. You know exactly what's going on. Yeah, there's a scene where one of the guys, he's hung, like, I don't think he hung himself, but he's basically hanging with a noose around his neck. It's very clear, it's very explicit. There is the scene where the cameraman like slices his own throat and like you see his feet there. Okay, like that's pretty explicit. But one scene that kind of haunts me, pun intended, right, is when we're on the actual haunt with the people that have been waiting to come inside. We're in that basement area. There's that girl that's been chained up in the basement as part of the show, and she's like, this is real, this is not the show, this is real. I felt so bad for her. And then you just see this kind of like being walking towards her, and you don't know what the fuck is going on, and it's out of like focus. You don't know what you're seeing. It's so quick. I mean, as someone that's watched this movie multiple times, do they cut to like her hanging there and then like she's missing parts of her body? Like, what the fuck happens after that?
I just think it almost feels like there's like this kind of gateway to hell vibe to it, and you're like, she's left there to be taken. But yeah, they do get into more of that in the sequels, parts 2 and 3, definitely, in terms of like what happened in the Abaddon house and what's going on with these cloaked figures, etc. If you watch the sequels, they're all on Shudder. They're all streaming on various other platforms, I think, as well. But all 4 films are now on Shudder, and you should definitely try to check that out. I don't have much time left.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, no problem, man.
Sorry. I Saturday mornings are always
gotcha. I just love talking about this stuff, and I love talking about random movies like this.
I really love that we're talking about this franchise, because I've been a fan of it now for 8 years, or at least 6 or 7 years. And, people always talk about the horror franchises, the Halloweens, Friday the 13th. Hell House LLC is officially 4 movies as a franchise. 3 is a trilogy, 4 is a franchise. And there hasn't been a bad one. They're all really scary. And they all have that same, and this is very important, that same unique vision from writer-director Stephen Cognetti. And he seems like he is totally down to just continue churning these out. Like, if he can make one of these 90-minute movies every year to 2 years, whether it's focusing on Abaddon or the Carmichael Manor or another, friggin' Binghamton Junior High where Rod Serling went, whatever he wants to do, like, I totally will follow him and his career path.
Yes. And that is actually what we're doing on this show. Danny and I covered Hell House LLC today from 2015. And then the prequel that we keep mentioning, the one that just came out in 2023, we are going to be covering next week. So make sure, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, make sure you're subscribed to the Lastercast. Did you want to talk about, I know you got to go, but like, do you want to just quickly drop what else is on the channel?
Yeah, just to like promote, aside from, I already promoted my short review of Hell House LLC and the 30-minute Q&A from director Stephen Cognetti, which is up on the channel. I thought last week we did a really good review of When Evil Lurks, probably the most disturbing movie I've seen in a long time. We have 4 episodes covering Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher. I have a short currently out in theaters. It's a Wonderful Knife. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a horror version of It's a Wonderful Life, as if It's a Wonderful Life met Scream. It's written by Michael Kennedy, who did Freaky. It's directed by the director of Tragedy Girls. It was a lot of fun. I took Charlotte. She really enjoyed it. You could check out our short review. And then I actually just got screener passes for next Tuesday to see the new Eli Roth film, Thanksgiving. So
okay.
I'll have a review of that up next week as well. And yeah, that's pretty much where I stand.
Nice. Okay. Well, as you guys can see, Danny is a content making machine. If you want to see more of his reviews, make sure you're part of the Lasser cast. And we love hearing from you guys too. So leave a comment about what you think about Hell House LLC. Until then, we will talk to you guys next time.